Okay. Hello. Hi, I'm back, and this is as in episode 3 of Kanalabs Podcast. And with us, we have Ash from Aptos. And I really don't know much about Ash. I've heard so much about him via social media, actually. So he seems like quite a popular person, very trendy these days. I think Ash is the word in streets, especially if you're on Aptos Twitter. And I'm not, I think, exaggerating about it at all. So I'll let Ash introduce himself and tell us who he is.
Yeah, hi, Surbi. It's nice to meet you. It's great to be trendy, but I hope I'm fashionable, so I don't go with the times. But I'm Ash. I lead ecosystem here at Aptos Foundation. I've been in the role just over, I would say, maybe 2 months now. So the learning curve has been great, but it's been a great joy to hear from the builders, investors, community members who've all been here since day one on. Um, where they think the opportunity is for Aptos and really kind of combining that vision in terms of making it into a reality. So it's nice to meet you.
Same here. And
Yeah.
so it's been just 2 months. And
Yeah.
I really like that thing you said, that being fashionable instead of trendy. I think that's pretty cool. Not very degen though, Ash, but very, I think, a very
DJs are fashionable. DJs are
charming.
fashionable. Yeah.
That's a very nice way to
Hmm.
gain confidence, I think.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, so it must have been, I think, like 2 months, and there's so many projects, and there's so much
Yeah.
expectation out of Aptos.
Hmm.
So how has it been? Like, has it been very different? Have you worked in Web3 before? Where have you come from? Like, I'd like to hear everything from that point.
Yeah. I'll give you a short story of how I got here. I got my start in tech working for Spotify when they launched in the United States. And my job really there was um, I was very grateful for the job, but my job was essentially growth marketing. So finding fast, efficient, direct ways to acquire consumers. And at the time, it was really a new product paradigm in the sense that no one in the United States was used to paying for music, right? They streamed it, they pirated it, maybe they watched YouTube on it. And here we are, we were launching a product and service in a market that had a lot of fragmentation and not a high desire to pay for any sort of music. And then my job was going to convert users. So I had a nice challenge in front of me. I was very young. It was one of my first jobs right out of college, but it was a great learning experience to understand how to build value propositions, think about strategies on how to acquire users, think about growth funnel metrics and how you reprioritize investment mechanisms to drive growth. I did that for a few years and then was recruited over to YouTube to work on a variety of things related to music and products across the board. My thesis when I was moving from Spotify to YouTube was that, Spotify was kind of this, iTunes 2.0. The product was great, but the opportunity for the market was somewhat limited because it was a closed retail environment, right? So you either pirate music here or you buy a download on iTunes, but here Spotify, you can stream it, right? YouTube for me presented this opportunity to really dive into what is now widely accepted as the native creator economy. And so I spent 7 to 8 years there working in a variety of roles. First, product marketing. Second, I did content partnerships. And then third, I built a go-to-market team to manage several product areas to drive growth. Um, Up until 2021, 2022, I saw something interesting happening outside of the building of Google and YouTube. And that was a new creator economy emerging with NFTs. I think this was at the peak of the NFT market for ETH in 2021. Um, and it was when Solana was starting to emerge as another chain for NFTs. And I was actually onboarded through my research first to Solana.
Oh,
Um, One, because I was a non-native crypto user, and Solana had a great wallet in Phantom that had a Web2 almost like user experience because of the speed and performance of Solana versus Ethereum. And so for me, I was just like, yeah, this makes sense. I know how to download this. If I click something, it happens in a second. Like gas fees, what's that, right? I don't even have that much money in my account to pay these like ETH gas fees, right? And then meanwhile, there was a bunch of great creators and creative art coming to the chain and through Magic Eden. So I was onboarded to this space through Solana. I saw a new creator economy emerging of developers or graphic designers who are, really thinking about bottoms up community brand building and making a ton of money doing it. And so I got obsessed as a consumer, and, still working at YouTube. I was like, hey guys, like, what are we going to do about this? Right. We're the ones who paved the way for the creator economy. Look, there's a new creator economy emerging. And after a few cycles of presenting how we could onboard into Web3, it was rightfully so not one of their top 20 priorities at the time. If you think about the promise of Web3, it's quite radical when you think about Web2 markets, right? It's shared ecosystems, shared liquidity, cross interoperability across different apps.
Transparency.
Transparency. When you think about YouTube, Amazon, all these companies, like they don't want to play in each other's sandboxes, right? So I made the decision to leave and pursue it full time because I felt like if I didn't, I would really miss the next wave of emergent technology that'll change the world. And I actually started working in the Solana ecosystem at a company called Metaplex, which was a protocol that spun out of Solana Labs that managed all of the digital asset infrastructure, including NFTs, for the Solana ecosystem. I led business there, and me with my Web2 hat on how I think about business development or business growth or revenue generation, I said, okay, guys, what's the product? Who's the customer? And what's our monetization principles?
All the wrong questions, Ash.
All the wrong questions. So, I would say even the first, 2-3 weeks of that job, I realized that, look, Web3 is a nascent industry. It's an emerging, blockchain is an emerging technology. People are going to be searching, at least companies, for product market fit at all areas of the stack, right above the blockchain. And we were one of those companies that were above the blockchain. So it was an interesting environment in the sense that we can provide technology or tools to, let's say, our users. But if we don't do it well enough, our users could quickly become our competitors because maybe they can just fork the code and build a better version. So it was a very real awakening of saying, hey, you know what? This job isn't really go to market or classic business development. This is really coordinating an ecosystem around a common mission and being able to deliver and listen in equal parts. And so I would say I started learning about how to do ecosystem unwittingly at Metaplex because so many different stakeholders in Solana were dependent on us, right? From a DApp to a creator to an end user to Solana, the blockchain itself. And so it was balancing all of those interests across the board and being able to make sure that we're all on the same page moving towards a common mission. And then I got the opportunity for Aptos, and there was a few other blockchains that I personally was interested in. And my thesis was essentially, I was watching Aptos from the sidelines in Solana when it was coming to mainnet. And I can tell you that Solana has benefited a lot from being first and improving performance so much more than Ethereum that you can see the proliferation of apps, consumer behavior, which I think has led them to a very vibrant ecosystem. But, Aptos was being developed at Facebook. It was built natively to scale for their billion user app economies, to move money from Instagram to WhatsApp to Facebook, right? And I think when I somehow got in touch or crossed paths with the Aptos team, I was like, wow, this is crazy. I've been admiring you as technologists, as a blockchain and a network and the capacity of what you can actually do. And I kind of jumped at the opportunity and did 10 interviews in 4 days. And now here I've been at Aptos.
10 interviews just sounds so Aptos or something very, very TradFi. Those are the days. I remember when interviews to be like that, unlike crypto. But
well, I think my observation here is, relatively new, is that there's a ton of people here who have been here since the beginning. So it's kind of fascinating to think about the retention in Web3 for a company this young, right? 1 year in crypto is like 7 years in any trad industry. And so
true.
You have people here who've been here and they've been working towards a common mission. And I think when we think of hiring, we really take that seriously, right? Can this person commit? Can this person work hard for a long period of time? And do they have the chops to match the technology's promise. You know, the builders, the research, the blockchain team built this at Meta under crazy ambition, right? They couldn't build something half-assed, right? So, you know, when we onboard people, we want to make sure you're not half-assed. So that's why I justify the 10 interviews.
So I'll go back to your
Mhm.
days to Spotify, but very quickly, I'm assuming these are important criteria, but I'm also assuming because I feel like I know large part of the Aptos team,
Mhm.
and I've met them like several times. I think Greg and I have a running joke that we've met in almost like 4 continents and
Mhm.
maybe across 10 cities, and I
Yeah.
don't even work for Aptos. So I think probably with these interviews and how they do, I think relationships also do matter a lot, right? Like how do you bond with each other?
Mhm.
Are you like-minded, diverse, cognitively diverse, but are you like-minded and can you get along with each other? Do you think that is something which is important to Aptos too, or
It's very important. I mean, we live in a volatile industry, right? Things can go really high in sentiment very quickly and also go very low. So what is going to be your normalizing factor? It's the people you're in the trenches with working. And you have to trust each other, and you have to deal with duress, and you have to deal with joys all within a week. So I think people are like, in my opinion, in Web3, the most important asset. I know that might be funny to say because everything is permissionless and anonymous and trustless, and we kind of think about decentralization, but it doesn't work unless you have people aligned to a common theme of an outcome, right? Like
I
we,
completely agree.
yeah, we don't need to be told what to do from the top down, but we need to believe in the greater good to work together. So I think people are hugely important.
I think I completely agree. And I think that's one thing which I feel is missing in crypto because people tend to think that it's not important sometimes to know who your end user is. Like if there's just those names on Discord or on Twitter, but knowing them, it creates a bond and understanding of what people actually want, what you're solving for, what could be the greater good.
Hmm.
Are you aligned itself? So are you or just aimlessly trying to earn money,
Hmm.
which is good, right? Like that's what we all want. But at the end of the day, it's not sustainable, or which probably is still lacking the user acquisition in crypto, maybe.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
hold on, I'm digressing. So you started at a time when Spotify was making people not making, or the entire business model was that people pay for music, and this is still the time I think when LimeWire was much active.
Exactly. Yes.
So I've used LimeWire, so I'm quite aware.
I should have converted you. I missed you there.
Now I don't. Okay, I'm a
Yeah.
Spotify user, like
Okay, good.
100%.
Yeah.
Like I'm through and through Spotify.
You can't live without it, right? I
Right?
couldn't. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I've been asking, so we are building like a perpetual futures, and we
Hmm.
did launch like options on like a perpetual options product too. And I literally asked, I said, do you think we can embed like Spotify? Because when you're trading
Oh yeah.
in the music zone and you have the playlist, I'm like, it's actually capitally, it's no value add, but as a person, you can have the playlist.
Lock in.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
Nike Run Club does it. I,
Yeah.
I don't know if you use it. It's amazing because you can just pick on the playlist when you're running and it suits the run you're doing, whether it's 10 minutes.
Kirby, I wish I used it more, but I don't get to exercise much.
Oh my gosh. I think I'm on kind of similar page now since I've been
It's hard. Yeah.
let's not get that. I feel like my front look like this looks much better than when I see myself on stage.
Oh, I'm
So
not sure
let's
about
not even. But okay,
yeah.
so we've established you've come. So you were already defining these rules, and now I think even when coming to YouTube, yes, it's a creator economy, but it's a completely different model again, right? You're making people, and it's quite more like blockchain,
Mm-hmm.
like appeal,
Mm-hmm.
apart from being on the tech itself, but
Mm-hmm.
you're allowing people to earn for what they create,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Exactly.
That mindset would have been completely different. And now I think you're on blockchain where there are no users.
Mm-hmm.
I know, like I'm exaggerating that there are no users, but still there is a big barrier to entry. Like everybody listens to music,
Mm-hmm.
everybody watches videos, it's addictive, but not everybody, you know, generates laws and stakes their
Mm-hmm.
token. People don't know what staking is. People don't know what like I would say like perpetual futures are, right?
Yeah.
People don't know testnet, mainnet, and all these different kinds of bits or trenches.
Yeah.
No matter what has been used on Aptos right now. So, how do you see? So, coming from there, like, how do you position yourself? What are you expecting out of Aptos? Or is it too soon to know? Like, how are you looking at things?
I wouldn't say it's too soon, but the speed in which we get there is still TBE. But that comes
Mm.
down to execution, I would say majority, but also the minority, the market. We never can tell what is going to happen. We're an extremely volatile industry, right? On the
Yes.
spectrum of assets, we're at the tip of the tail in risk, right? So I think I try to focus on what I can control. And the way I think about it is this, at the end of the day, this blockchain Aptos was built for amazing consumer apps to be built, right? It was going to power Instagram's payments, right? It was going to power WhatsApp. So that's the starting feature of kind of why this blockchain is built and what it can support. So the question is, how do we get there so that the next big unicorn consumer app that's really plugged in for native like Web3 users, but super accessible to like normies and people who might not be so in the trenches. I think the way to do that is a few things that I think Aptos has a lot of hill to climb, but quickly, and we're going to be very urgently doing it. Which is number one, we want to be really focused on bringing liquidity and economic activity on chain. Right now, that's not saying that there's some new idea or thought behind that, but that is the backbone of any ecosystem. And that, like from a layer one or layer two perspective, right? So we think there's a ton of opportunity there, having great financial products on this on the platform, thinking about easy ways for products or projects to organically launch tokens, to bootstrap or crowdfund their projects like the old days, having great price discovery for tokens through AMMs. What does a great order book look like on Aptos? And so for me, there's a engine there that we are in the midst of executing that is important to execute urgently and
Mhm.
upfront. And when you have liquidity there and you have users who are transferring value, you give developers an opportunity to try and fail, try, fail, and succeed, right? Because stopping what you're doing, whether it's your day job or you work in crypto, and focusing on one blockchain is a risky endeavor, right? You have to say, okay, will I get multiple shots on goal here? Because no one knows where this is going or what the next breakout app is going to be. So I need to go to a place where one, I'm supported, two, there's liquidity, which means I can have funding or have opportunity to tap into users with real value and high LTV. And three, there's a foundation there, like the Aptos Foundation, that's going to be very supportive of me as a founder trying new things. Um, so I think bootstrapping liquidity and getting economic activity on chain is important. That unlocks people and developers and founders to try to build new paradigms of apps and take multiple shots on goal. And so that's the kind of way I look at it. In terms of where we're opinionated on the, I would say like founder level or product level perspective, we think like it's important to note that number one, um, high throughput blockchains are built for high frequency trading.
Mm.
They just are, right? Like it's kind of an interesting thing in the sense that the goal that all of them are trying to get to, right? The end state is essentially having a decentralized network that is as competent as a centralized exchange or entity in terms of
Without
speed,
without spending $7 trillion on it.
without spending $7 trillion, with while maintaining self custody. That is the end game, right? Which is to say that can we compete with the Nasdaq? And I think that's obvious, right? So everything we do from a blockchain perspective is always trying to get to that end state. The second thing is payments, and for us, this goes back to our origin as the Libra project at Facebook, which is, hey, how can people send money cross network, cross borders, in a cheap, fast, and affordable way, right? Because sending money from U.S. to India is an absolute nightmare, right? And I mean, it's crazy, right? Now imagine if you just want to send $5 to someone to like pay for something. So I think that we really are super bullish on founders who want to build payments products, payments infrastructure that kind of go around a few different use cases. So, it can be micropayments for subscription streaming models. It could be micro loans. It could be remittances. There's tons of things that open up now that we have as Aptos, based on the original origins of Libra and what it was meant to do, and now that we have the three major stables on chain, we're like, let's go. What can you build? And then I would say the third piece is a little bit further scoped, which is, yeah, going back to YouTube, if you think about it, the creator economy does have the ethos embedded in it that Web3 is all about, right? Self-made, self-sustained. So now how do you actually build something like that in Web3 natively, right? How do you build an Instagram or a YouTube or an insane content machine or commerce machine that is used to Web2 but can be supported on decentralized networks? And that's all about infrastructure as well. So I try not to be too opinionated because I think who am I to know, right? The people that are going to know what's coming through the curve are the founders, the builders, the ones that are extremely convicted about their idea and passion. And I think my job is making sure I can find those people and also be smart enough not to ignore them.
I think there are a couple of things, like me building myself. Like, I think the fact that you said that allowing the space to fail
Yeah.
and come back up, because I feel like that's somewhere missing in the crypto industry.
Mm-hmm.
It is quite predatory. So the fact, like, if you and Aptos is positioning yourself as that, it allows for people to do something much better. Because I can say from my experience itself, you don't know, you might know the tech, right? But you might not know marketing at all. It's completely different in crypto, like how to onboard users. And that kind of a sandbox bit, if a chain is providing versus the government,
Mm-hmm.
it itself is such a psychological support
Mm-hmm.
that you want to do it. You want to do what you are passionate about, not too passionate too, because then you won't know what you're kind of building. But you're trying to solve a problem, you're trying to do something. And the fact that if you have an ecosystem around you that supports it, it itself, it becomes such a beautiful thing, I think, like a growth model in certain ways. I also, so, going back to, I see that how you've picked on from almost everything, like YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
um, creator economy bit,
Mm-hmm.
consumer applications, how to build on that, remittances, payments, like something which actually people get impacted by.
Mm-hmm.
There's a large scope. I think currently there's only one chain which is dominating there, but it has a lot of other problems with it. Like, I myself will not use the other chain for payments because
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the trust factor.
Mm.
So building these things, I think, like, would it also mean that there'll be more on ramp and off ramp in terms of
Yeah,
good
of
back?
course. We are doing all of the partnership and infrastructure work we need to do so that um, we can do cross-border anything, right, on the payment space, and that's super important. But it's a targeted list of things we need to do, right, on and off ramps, some other infrastructure integrations. Getting embedded with a commerce partner that can actually power commerce on behalf of merchants,
Right.
but with stables. So I think we have a roadmap in terms of that's going to be done pretty quickly in the sense that we're urgently supporting it. But yeah, this space is I think the payment space is still, it's fascinating, right? Because it's kind of like stables have such product market fit. And you have high throughput blockchains that remove literally any friction of sending a dollar. And it's kind of like, where are we? Why isn't this taking over the world, right? And I think it will, right? It is such a massive concept, right? And there's so much coordination that needs to go into it. So I think we're there, and it's the first leg of the race, in my opinion. And so, yeah, we have to earn your trust, and we have to earn everyone in your network's trust to just do simple things on chain.
Ash, I would really say thank you for saying that, earning the trust.
Yeah.
It goes both ways. And secondly, also, I think you said a very important thing, not ignoring the ones who
Mm-hmm.
have that passion, who have that spark, who know what they're building.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think a lot of times, I'm forgetting the term, in economics, when you do in econometrics, you have the fail test, you have the one and two. I'm completely blanking out on that, but
Mm-hmm.
that very much says, I think, ignoring the right answer sometimes is more harmful
Mm-hmm.
versus only finding the right answers and, like, like, and having that thing that this is what the right is,
Yeah.
and the other aspect of leaving it out. So on this note, like, how can we guys help you, Ash? Like, people who've been building on Aptos or people
Mhm.
who want to build on Aptos, like, how would it make your life easier? And for us to reach that goal, right,
Mhm.
together,
Mhm.
like, what can we do? It could be as simple as, like, you should be able to tell what your project is doing in 3 words. Or
Mhm.
it could be much more. That, guys, like, this is what is missing.
Yeah.
Please explain or tell me what is missing. So how is it that you can be supported so that we can win?
Well, it's interesting you frame that question in that way because I don't think naturally this role is about me being supported. It's about me supporting you. And the way I think about it is number one, like pretty soon, I shouldn't have the title of head of ecosystem. Everyone should be head of ecosystem in the sense that if you think about a foundation, um, what our goal is, right? There's Aptos Labs and then there's Aptos Foundation. I'm on Foundation. What the role of the foundation is to decentralize the network, right? And obviously, there's ways in which you do that technically with like validators and things like that, but that's already done, right? So then what's next? Well, you have to make sure that they're successful businesses and tokens and teams on chain. Because if you do that, now you have a bunch of other foundations, right, that are emerging and that can build their own ecosystem, right? And that's kind of how you get to real, true decentralization from a foundation perspective. And so you see it in other ecosystems, right? You say, the other chains that are very successful already here, it's not just them doing the marketing or the messaging. It's this company doing it as well. It's this company doing it as
And
well.
Solana, bang on. Like, Solana
Exactly. Yeah.
earned and it allowed people to earn. It just kind of.
Exactly. And so why does the Solana Foundation need to say anything? Everyone's already saying something and they have an opinion and they're driving change and they're empowered to drive change. They don't have to wait for the foundation to do anything. And that's where I want to get to, right? And I think that's the goal. I would say the way in which we get to that goal is number one, if we can be somewhat informative of you on what's important to build on the network. And there's a few ways we can think about that, right? Number one is um, the investor class. Obviously, you as a founder, you don't want to over index in terms of what investors look at, but they're a good signal for people with the long view, right? In terms of where they see blockchain heading, where they want to invest in new verticals and things like that. So that's number one, I think, for that. Number two is what we're good at, what differentiates us versus other chains. And I think that really is the high throughput use cases that are for massive scale, right? So if it's payments or decentralized infra, we say, hey, it would be great if you could start building in this and like start there and see what you think, right? Obviously, the other person on the other side has to show interest and signal and like kind of meet in the middle of saying, yeah, we think this can work. And then I think number three is this is going to be, I think, a growth area for us, which is we need to be good about helping teams, and it's maybe not Kana so much because Serbi, you seem already like PhD level at this, but other teams who may be great technically, who may be great from a passion and vision perspective, but need polish in terms of pitching and marketing and like really understanding that go to
I'll just,
market motion.
I'll just tell you, it took 2.5 years because I really know where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Even now, we struggle because, anyway, that's a different story altogether.
Everyone struggles. We struggle too, right? It's
Yeah.
tough, right? It's kind of like if you think about a traditional, let's say, go to market or brand or marketing function, and you're from the traditional industries as well. It's like you have 6 months to build a campaign, right? Like here's our customer target. This is what they use. Here's all of our channels of how we're going to do it. Here's our 6 months to like before you even launch something a campaign, right? And like in 6 months, those users haven't changed much. The industry hasn't changed much, so you're fine, right? So it's like you can predict the outcome, right? Here, are you kidding me? Like tomorrow, people might have moved on from what my original assumption was of what they care about.
Exactly.
So so how do you market in that environment? And I think from my perspective is we and I need to be an example of this, but like I also need to attract people who know this better than me in the ecosystem, which is marketing in Web3 first and foremost starts with your power users and
Hmm.
what they care about the most. So empowering them to be a voice is hyper important. The second piece, in my opinion, is it's all bottoms up. The moment you think top down, I have a message, this is my company, and this is what people need to know, it's like you're cooked, man. Like, people in this space, they don't want to be told what to do. They will create it. Like, that's why I thought NFTs were such a fascinating, especially in the profile picture phase, right? Whether it was
Yes.
Bored Apes or Doodles or then all the Solana ones. People are like, oh, it's just like buying like digital art. That's stupid. And I'm like, no, you're entering a brand advisory. You know what I mean? Like,
I completely know. I remember when, like, in my previous office in London, we had a
mm,
museum which
mhm,
was completely dedicated to NFT.
mm,
And I used to go to New York. Everywhere you could actually mint. There was some booth I remember where you could
mm.
mint the NFT. It had just gone crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah,
so,
exactly. And you remember that experience, right? And a lot of people remember when they were part of an NFT or part of a project or a user, and they're in the Discord and they're like, "Hey, let's meet up in Texas. I live in Texas. You live in Texas." Like, great. They get together. Like, oh, there's 4 other people in Texas. Hey, wait, let's put a proposal together of what we want the new direction of the collection to go. Like, this is what Web3
yes.
is, and what marketing in Web3 starts from. And so, as a platform or a foundation, we have to like think about that natively, right? In terms of how we operate, it's really with our power users. It's empowering them to tell the story, and I think the way in which you can control it, or at least have some predictability, is just being strong on execution of what you say you're going to do, right? As a company, right? We're gonna ship these 3 things. We're gonna hit this. This is what we're after. We're doing the product and execution stuff. We'll do all the deals to make it easy. But meanwhile, you guys need to tell the story, right? And we're going to help you in doing that. Tell me what you need. That's kind of what it is.
So, Ash, what I see is that you need clarity in founders, what they're looking at, why they're doing it, and have a very straight focus, and
Mm-hmm.
not like I'll do this and that and da da da, but rather this is what, like, I have my vision, why I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing this,
Yeah.
right? And this is what is going to build the ecosystem from bottom up. So I have one thing. So, like, it's after listening to, I'm quite bullish, and it does not
Good.
really. I don't use the word bullish too much unless now I started learning the Twitter marketing. It
Mm-hmm.
took me some time,
Mm-hmm.
but like I feel very confident about the fact, like the direction Aptos is taking, and like feeling more motivated to work towards it. And I remember, I think it's just a very good time. I think you've come, like, there's been like US has kind of pivoted in terms of where it's starting the blockchain itself. You
Mm-hmm.
have Trump coin and everything else. It's not about how it worked out, but rather on the lines of the signaling itself.
Mm-hmm.
You announced a $200 million fund
Mm-hmm.
that which will be, I think, used to build the ecosystem. And you joined Aptos, so 3 things already here.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking good in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
And what else is there? Like, is there something else which we're missing, possibly, amongst the 3 list?
Uh, no, I mean, I think that um, number one, I think we put out that post to signal of what our intentions are with the ecosystem. I think that was one big feedback that we had gotten even prior to my time, but even when I was onboarding, was, hey, like, we don't know what you guys care about, so how are we going to know what to build,
Yes.
right? And for me, 50% of that is you're absolutely right. The other 50% is I wish you would just come steamroll our door and tell us what you're going to build. But
Yeah.
either way, we should take the first step, right? And so that was really the intention behind that, which is just make it very clear. We care about these 3 things. This is the investment we're putting behind it to accelerate it. And so when you come to us, you'll know kind of from a starting position on what we generally care about. But if you have a great idea and you're an amazing founder and you're just going to go, and my recommendation is always to go, don't wait to have a meeting with me, like
Hmm.
go and then have a meeting with me. And then like we'll support you, like let's go. I think that's kind of like what the intention for that is. And also it's supposed to mark the ecosystem team at Foundation's intention to build in public. So it's kind of the Elon, it's kind of like, what did you do this week? Right? We want to hold ourselves accountable. What did we do this week? Right? Or what did the ecosystem team do this week? And in that motion, how do we start lifting up people who are coming to the ecosystem and building and giving them a platform? So it's kind of like, what did the ecosystem do this week? Well, we actually saw these people do some stuff this week. So like, look at them, right? Like they're building this. This is a
Yeah.
new use case, right? Here's how we help them market, like all of these things. And so that was really kind of, it was just like put a start page, right? Like on what we want to accomplish this year. I would say outside of ecosystem, though, there's a ton of great stuff coming from Aptos Labs. Again, this is where all of the Giga engineers sit who improve the network, create awesome primitives like keyless, which helps you, use the network without having to manage your seed phrase and like you would
I
yeah,
love
it's crazy.
literally using for the products. Like literally, I think
It's amazing.
like Aptos Connect and Petra. Love
Yeah,
it.
it's
Like
amazing, right? So there's still a ton of development to do there to say, okay, let's say we bring on all these great products and founders. How can we keep the level of infrastructure and tooling so that they never have to think twice about feeling pain when they have an idea and they want to build, right? Like, how do you get them from conception to a product to something that can go to mainnet in like 3 weeks, right? So I think that's kind of like the two balance, I would say, not missing, but outside of the ecosystem team is really the innovation that Aptos Labs is going to continue to do.
I think like that this side of innovation, brilliant. Not
Yeah.
even joking. Like one of the reasons why we chose Aptos because it's easy to onboard people who don't understand crypto,
Yeah.
right? Like a MetaMask is still so difficult,
I
even if
know.
like and I'm not some chain like jingo is that like this is how it's supposed to be.
Mhm.
Only this chain will win.
Yeah.
It's simply if I want to onboard people, if I'm building something for people with a vision,
Hmm.
what if it will allow them to interact without being intimidated? Because
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's so intimidating, and people have so many things to worry about every day, especially since COVID, I think. So
Hmm.
imagine taking out the time and like figuring something out. It's so I think
I mean, completely. I mean, look, like you can argue the only thing that across chains or ecosystems that's found product market fit for multiple cycles is DeFi, right? Now, okay, so it's been around for multiple cycles. It's still so fucking hard to use. Like, are you kidding me? It's so complicated. Like, okay, like what have we done to make it easy for my mom to like or earn rewards on like stables, right? Like she would like to do that, right? She has it sitting
everybody.
in an account. She's doing the same thing somewhere else and not even making as much, right? So it's like, what are we doing? Like we have to like make this simple. How can we do the rest of the stuff if we can't even figure this out?
I think I've like banged my head on the wall so many times because it's not that it's not happening. What I'm trying to say, it's not happening on blockchain, but if you
Yeah.
see India as an example,
Yeah.
so India has changed how options are traded. Oh
Mm,
my gosh, every second person on the street is trading options, and they have not changed anything. They've just made it easy.
wow, really?
Yes, it's incredible. Like how they've like right now, I think one of the largest traders of options. Everybody retail. I'm not saying it's not risky, right? Like, but that's the
Sure.
nature of trading.
Yeah.
But imagine onboarding so many people. Like it is, I remember like Korea, even in my TradFi days, Korea used to be the market that, oh my gosh, the volume is crazy. People
Hmm.
are very risk, they like risk. They're not risk averse at all. Whereas India, it was always the savings country.
Hmm.
And people still don't have that. It's not a rich country. When they can change in Web 2, how people are trading, I think it's the Web 3. Like I know the tooling is still missing, but I
Yeah.
think the intention is too. And what I mean by that is like even now I have to argue that no, this is how it's going to work. Like every UI is going to be so similar to the other one because this is what works for degens.
Hmm.
And like degens are part of humans or Web 2 people, but Web 2 are not part of degens.
Hmm.
They don't build or do something like just because it was successful in crypto,
Hmm.
it still does not allow other people. So I feel like there's just such a vicious cycle in this term. It is tooling is one aspect, Ash. I don't know what your opinion on this is, but the other aspect is simply even the UI UX, right? Of course, UX does come from the tooling bit, but the UI itself, like I feel like it's still not very user friendly. Like I know my mother wouldn't be comfortable, like using a website which is on crypto because she's like, oh my gosh, like I'm not sure what I'm going to click,
Hmm.
right? Like
Yeah.
what if something goes wrong?
Yeah.
And that intention I feel is still missing. So it's good to know that you have that intention because that will kind of like trickle down across and it gives a different bit. Okay, so after listening to all these things, I know we've talked a lot about Aptos, we've talked a lot about your thing. I am more interested in now learning more about you.
Okay.
So the mere fact you said that tomorrow I should not be the head of ecosystem, like that's the entire aspect of you being so humble about it. So where did that come from? Like, tell us more about like And maybe you don't think it's humble, which is very nice, but it's rare because people hold on to these things too strong, right? Like to think from the perspective of just community, people, right? So where did that come from? Like how does your brain work?
um, I don't know if it's humble. I would even say it's ambitious in a way, right? Because for me to not have to be the head of ecosystem or be able to pass the crown means I've done the job that I needed to do. So that's how I look at it. I would say by starting, I'll tell you a little bit about how I grew up.
Very interested, by the way,
Yeah,
because I know
yeah.
it's Ash, but I know that's not your full name.
Ashwin.
Ashwin. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Indian
yeah.
name or India or some
India,
other?
yeah, yeah. I mean, my parents are Indian. I'm Indian. But I grew up in a very rural, midwestern state in the United States, in
Oh, wow.
Kentucky, in a town of like, it was like a village, right? But like an American village.
Also being Indian there. Okay.
Exactly. My parents immigrated from India, moved here,
And which
started
part of India, Ash? I'm sorry.
Hyderabad.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
I love
yeah.
the food, by the way. I don't know if you visited. The food is incredible.
I mean, Hyderabad. I used to go every year, like every year.
Love the food. Okay,
It's
then you go to Kentucky. Okay, the food is good. I don't know if you eat everything, but like food is really good. But Hyderabadi food,
I mean, no. Listen, I think Indian food and food I found in Kentucky are no match. India wins 1,000,000%. I mean, India is like the diversity and the flavors and the culture around different things, and what is breakfast and what is dinner and what is lunch and what is the tea time and snack time. It's just it's a whole different universe. But I grew up in a place where there weren't a lot of people like me or had my origin story, and so the way I kind of got along was relating to people, right? Like, hey, let me meet you where you're at, right? Like, what do you like to do? Oh, you want to play sports? I'll play basketball. Like, oh, you want to tell jokes? Like, I'm pretty funny, right? Like, um, that's kind of how. And it
that's
wasn't really being,
charming.
it wasn't being a chameleon. It was just like I wanted to get to know people. So my starting position is always like, what do you care about, right? And then sometimes I don't care about what they care about, and we'll probably have a very limited engagement. But most of the time, if you ask the question and you really spend time with someone, you'll find a lot of commonality, no matter where you're from. And I would say that's kind of where it originates. And I think in Web3 mostly too, right? You talk with someone on Twitter who's like blasting you or like really acerbic, and you DM them and you have a call and you're like, they're not even like that. You know what I mean? Like,
I really
right?
know what you mean.
So that's what I would say it comes from is kind of that. I also, for me, I was never the best basketball player. I was never the painter. I was never the best mathematician, but I always admired and knew how to put into context people I thought who were the best. So I kind of see myself as an agent more than a player, and being able to see talent and enable it and like really help them think through some things that they don't get to think through because they're so focused on being excellent and great. That's kind of how I see why I guess I'm like that.
Oh my God, Ash, that's incredible. Like I kind of do understand where you're coming from, like because I, of course, I have not had similar origins as you, but for me, my dad was in the army, so I traveled a lot, and India is so diverse, right? It's so diverse, so you have to be able to understand how people are. And I always was of the thinking that we guys have much more in common across the globe. And after that, I've lived in about 5 countries and worked maybe out of 6 or 7. People are always nice. It's people are inherently nice. Nobody grows up to be an asshole. They grow up to be nice. Like they're born with niceness. It's the other circumstances. And if you're able to figure that out, and with people like you, Ash, like world can be such a better place. And by me, when I say world can be a better place, like I also mean not just in a very socialist way, right? It does transform in every aspect. Like YouTube being a creator driven economy or company, it helped. It was sustainable. It helps people. You're allowing good things to happen by earning yourself and letting others to earn. Unfortunately, like money is what drives the world. And if you give that tool to them to be able to create what you want, like it's beautiful. So it's really, I really hope I see you in person sometime, actually. Like I'm
Yeah. When are you in New
interested.
York? I mean, I should also come. Well, you're traveling around everywhere, so it might be harder for me to reach you, by the way. But I'm here in New York. You know where I am.
Yes, I think I might. I do have some plans. So I was planning to come next week actually, but I'm just so tired of traveling. I
Just at home, get in your routine.
Yes, I just need to be like at a place
Yeah.
so I can, and we're also launching, like working on a mainnet product. So that's one thing. Okay. So other aspect is, so you grew up in Kentucky and you have been in all these aspects of life. What's one thing, if you take away from like everything which is materialistic in human beings, like what is one human behavior which really surprised you the most, and something which you think is like very important and really you can work with and has allowed you to be continuing to be motivated?
Um, a surprising human behavior. I don't know if any of it is surprising. Um, I think for me, maybe what is a bit surprising is this um, natural inclination towards anger. I think that I'm not too old, I guess, in the grand spectrum, but I'm old enough to have seen, progression, right, of the society that I'm exposed to, and I see this very immediate reaction to be angry, immediately, almost as if it is a way to be have an identity, right? And that's maybe because of social media and people's addiction to their phones and they're isolated or what. But that's been my biggest surprise. I would say the thing that I find that is always unifying when I meet people and also for myself is that I think everyone also just wants to be seen, right? So I think that that's kind of, I always kind of like go in with that attitude of, hey, this is a person. Um, they have a lot going on. They probably just want to take a moment to rest and like be themselves, right? And so I would say those are kind of my answers to your two questions.
Very interesting. I think I just framed, you answered it correctly, but I did frame it in a funny way. Like, what's the most surprising attribute? But to you, like, what did you notice the most? Which you did answer. I think might be true, but I feel like, I don't know, it depends so much on the culture you grew up in. I feel like post COVID, I see that much more.
Mhm.
Pre COVID, I saw more. I don't know if you get angry, Ash, but you look like a very chill person.
Oh, sure. No, I get angry. Yeah,
I think for me to get angry, it takes a lot.
that's good.
Like it takes, you really have to do something. My partner get angry at right away.
Of
But
course.
like other than that, like you really have to. And my first thing is when someone's angry, I'm just like, I really feel bad for you, you
Yeah.
know? And I just want to be there for you. And I don't know how I can be. And especially with when you're working crypto, there's no time. So that's the one thing. Okay, I think we are almost towards the end, and I do want to say that I know you accepted the podcast invite like just a week. Like it did not take me a lot of effort. I think it was just once I sent the thing, Haley got through and she like, yes, he'll do it. You sent me the, your slots. It was just so easy, Ash. And despite the fact like I did not have a telegram, I did not have any contact, like it was just smoothly done. The other thing is I sincerely apologize, like because I think it's late for you over there, or later than
Mhm.
here right now, and yet you were accommodating enough to, because I postponed by I think 45 minutes almost. So I really appreciate that, and I know like you doing a lot of work. So I, on record, I apologize. That was really
You don't need to apologize, Sorby. I think you mentioned that you don't often do this, but you're a natural at this podcast hosting game, and also being on camera. And it's been very enjoyable talking to you. And I'm always available whenever you guys want to
thank you so much. Is there anything you would like to tell people before you sign off?
talk. Have a great day.
That's so sweet. Okay, I'm gonna now end recording. Okay. Thank you so much, Ash.
Thanks, Sorby.